Hey Fred, on a lighter note, we have some questions here and some points I want you to talk about. First one, Robert from Staten Island was talking about the ketogenic diet. He said, Fred, in the light of eating regimens like the ketogenic diet, which is 80% of their calories are from fat, and other temporary ways of eating to treat an illness or a disease, which we just make suggestions for, do you see any use of these types of diets for short-term fixes? And Robert also showed how this was associated. He gave us a couple of links to how this is basically being used on children that have epilepsy. Can you make your comments, please, Fred?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, I really don't have any experience with a ketogenic type of diet, but I wouldn't encourage anybody to try to follow that type of diet. If they want to follow that type of diet, it should be done under medical doctor's supervision, because you're producing elevated ketones there, and a lot of people think elevated ketones is not necessarily a problem, but it could end up being a problem, so that's why you need medical supervision. But here's the way you have to look at something. The key for a body to heal is based on your body's ability. The body has remedial capabilities, that how you activate these remedial capabilities based on what you leave out. So if somebody's eating a diet that's 80% fat, they got to be leaving out 80% of something. I mean, they're probably leaving out 80% of processed food, spaghetti and all these other things. So based on what you're leaving out, you're eating 80% fat, the benefits are really coming from what you're leaving out. A diet of 80% fat is definitely, I definitely wouldn't encourage anybody to do anything like that. That's my opinion. But I understand this is done on a short-term basis, maybe a month or so. It should be done under medical supervision. But what I'm trying to say here is, if you go into a good diet, any diet that's 70-80% raw and 20% cooked, you're leaving out all the processed food, or 100% raw. Now, I'm not leaving out 100% raw. The reason we're addressing it this way is we're trying to reach people that can't eat all raw. We want to reach mainstream America. So I know you get better results from this type of a diet. It's 100% safe. You're leaving out all the factors that you're leaving out. You don't have to have 80% fat. When you have an 80% fat, you're leaving out 80% of something that definitely wasn't good for you. So 80% fat, in the process of eating a diet that's 80% fat, your body is having the advantages by what you're leaving out, but it's also got to deal with eating too much fat. So that's why the results they got they were good, but they weren't dramatic. How you get dramatic results is when you leave out all the offending foods, all the processed food, reduce the amount of protein you're eating to its an adequate amount of protein, and you can get too much protein on a vegan diet. A lot of people are getting too much protein on a vegan diet, and they're tired all the time, and they don't, after they get over the initial stimulation. You got to get into a diet that, and don't misunderstand when I use the word balanced. I'm not talking about in the traditional way. You got to get into a diet where you're eating a variety of good, fresh foods without hormones, pesticides, chemicals, no processed food. That alone is dramatic. That's where you get the fantastic results, the dramatic results. And some people can't go all the way, and they're still getting dramatic results. I see it every single day. So the key is, watch out for these studies that show something that's radical, short term. You have to be able to evaluate it by looking at all the variables. And the biggest variable you have to look at is based on what you're not doing. For everything you leave out, there's a reciprocal amount of improvement all the way up to an all-raw diet. So be careful about what you do. Anything that's radical like this, you should consult an expert, consult your doctor, or consult somebody that understands the chemistry of these things.
Great, thanks, Fred. Yeah, because Fred, you know what, as you always tell me, you're 80 and you're into the long run. We're not into short-term fixes. We're into the healthy journey for people. So we want people to do something that's actually doable, that doesn't seem so radical. And yeah, leaving out processed foods may seem radical, but it gives you dramatic results. So please pay attention. Also, our second article I'd like you to talk about was from the New York Times. Talked about how people aren't able to stay on a diet anymore, and they're trying to eat to enjoy. People are kind of finding their new focus point. Some of the article's points was focusing on vegetables and fruits and actually focusing on that, as opposed to thinking about they should be depriving themselves of things. They say now that 53% of consumers say that they're cooking more from scratch these days, which is fantastic. Sales of organic foods have soared, and people have some limited stories in here about them focusing on, the vegetables instead of thinking about, their fat consumption. And the study that really kind of hit me was from the United States Department of Agriculture. It said that people that actually shop, cook, clean up are their average weight. So it's about a lifestyle. So Fred, what do you tell people to focus on when they come see you about trying to stay really in tune, but kind of say, hey, this is the long run for me. I'm going to do it.
Well, I have to go back to my original concept that I've been saying for the last 40 years. What you leave out is the key that releases your chemistry to work the way it was meant to work here. The whole problem why people can't stay on diet is because what they've done in the past, when you're eating processed food, the effect it has on the hypothalamus gland is you just can't give up a few things is what I'm trying to say. Expect to release your cravings. It's just like a drug addict. A drug addict can't, if he's doing drugs every day, he can't reduce it down to twice a week and expect not to have cravings. The same thing with processed food and the effect it has on the hypothalamus gland, which is what keeps us in that trap, that addiction of food, which is a parallel road to drugs. Remember, food is broken down into chemicals. When you're eating processed food, it's broken down into the wrong type of chemicals that is stimulating the body to get it out of the body. And when you stop doing that, there's a letdown, so people think they need this stuff. The way to free yourself up from the problems we're having in our society is that to somebody to convince people that by giving up the processed food, to getting all the junk out of your system, you still can stay on a good diet, and you're getting free where it won't take a tremendous amount of discipline to overcome your cravings. I see people come to me say they can't give up things. When I get them to give up the processed food and I guide them a little bit for about a month, before you know it, they say they don't have any cravings, they're totally free of it, as long as they stay within the parameters of a healthy diet, and I give them a design to what that means, and that includes people going all raw. But where people run into trouble when they go all raw is they don't understand what hyperinsulinism can do for your appetite. When you're suffering from hyperinsulinism, you just want to eat, sweet things consistently. And the hypothalamus gland studies show that food scientists, that's how they keep us addicted to food. They understand the hypothalamus gland. They know how to stimulate the hypothalamus gland with sugar, fat, salt. They create these great solutions in junk food where your hypothalamus gland is continually stimulated. While you're eating the stuff, you're already thinking about your next meal. Once we understand the nature of food science, the effect it has on the hypothalamus gland, the effect it has on your brain chemistry, it's not hard to break this addiction. The whole problem is the information coming out in the news media is not the right, with all due respect, it's not the right information, because what they're doing is they're compromising to the degree where people won't get the true message and the real understanding of what's happening. People can lose weight and get control of their diet and get control of their health in a simple way that's attainable for mainstream people. We don't have to move to Ecuador. We don't have to go to Costa Rica. I mean, it's a nice place. I'd love to go. But we don't have to go there. We can get healthy any place in this country. Living right here in New York City, any place else, and we can do it reasonably well. The information is available. You have plenty of variables here. But the great thing, what I'm excited about now, a lot of science is coming to validate what we've been saying. Not only me, what other people have been saying. What we need is this validation scientifically. That's what we're trying to do with our research and getting people to help us run our information through a laboratory and have people validate it so we can explain things to people and then show them scientific validation of what we're saying is true.
Wow, Fred, that was a mouthful. I love that. All right, everybody. That's it for this week. And check out the website, www.fredbishyforhealth.com. And if you want to look at the long run, check out our natural health plan. It's a little profile for yourself. I'll give you a call back and we'll talk about it. And leave your comments and email us some questions and any other articles you want us to review. Have a good day.